Always takes me by surprise. But welcome everybody to, again, a beautiful Thursday afternoon in our part of the world. I hope it is where you are. I'd love to welcome everyone in for a Capsho feature breakdown today. So we're going to go deep into the world of self-learning. So really wanting to see how Capsho kind of explores and handles a variety of different scenarios and kind of types. But I should introduce myself. I'm Ash, and this is Bona, and we are two of the co-founders of Capsho. How are you this afternoon, Bona?
I'm good.
Yeah, I thought, let's get you in.
Let's do a little chat.
I'm having a good afternoon, and I hope you are too.
Other than being taken by surprise with our ad ending too early, but yeah, I'm good.
I'm glad to hear. I mean, I hope you're excited about the breakdown that we're about to show everybody.
I actually am, because this is it's a hot topic, but it's also, I feel a bit misunderstood. So I'm excited to get into the detail of what self-learning exactly is and how it happens.
That's true, because it probably can mean a whole bunch of stuff. So we want to kind of show you what that means inside Capsho. And almost a reset, like if everyone here watched 2 weeks ago when we kind of went live, we broke down more how to make AI sound like you. So we really showed, within ChatGPT how that can work and how we go about it inside Capsho.
Yeah.
So really that kind of set the scene for getting started, getting everything where you want to be ready for this self-learning to take place. So if you haven't, go back, watch, as I said, it'll be on the feed somewhere, but definitely 2 weeks ago, that piece of content. And this will build on that. So that's where we are going to go here. And what are we going to look at? We've got 3 pieces of content.
Yeah. So like I said, we really want to go self-learning. I think as a concept is thrown around, the buzzword is thrown around. We're like, what exactly is it? So what we thought we'd do is, I know we got together on the weekend, nerded out on this together.
Well, again, we thought, okay, we've got to show this because people are asking us. So like, let's show what this looks like. And then because of that, we were just like, well, this is all too good. Let's bring it to the table right now. Let's go live with it. Yeah. And again, it's a great throwback to this unlive method.
It's so good.
But we are live right now.
We are live. This is really us.
You meant to say ow. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because you're more showing I'm a real human.
Yeah, that's true.
That could be pre-recorded. Exactly.
That's true. Proof of life. That's real proof of life stuff.
I'm actually a robot, and that proved it. I'm the AI. Okay, we're off track already. But yeah, so really what we really thought would be really powerful is actually showing examples, of actually what do we mean by self-learning? What can you expect with the tool like Capsho? And we wanted to do it with firstly a range of assets, because there's different styles of assets, obviously, that, tools like Capsho creates for you, but also different people and different styles, because the whole point of self-learning is that it learns your unique style, and we have such different styles when it comes to how we put content out in the world, and between the different types of content we do, we have different structures and all of these things I didn't even realize we were doing. So we were like, let's pick 3 different brands and individuals with 3 different styles and 3 different assets as well in terms of, how they do their particular style. And we were their written content, and we were very specific to make sure that we picked people who had a very obviously tangible differences in how they did things.
Yeah,
so that we could point to it.
Definitely did it where if I looked at it, I'm like, okay, that's not how Capsho looks out of the box. That's not how we do it.
Yep.
That is uniquely theirs.
Yes.
Or maybe not so like uniquely. I'm sure there might be some other out there, but I'm like, immediately I can identify that this is their piece of content. This is their YouTube description, for example. Okay, let's see how we can bring that to life.
Yeah. So I'm excited.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so I think let's start with YouTube. So we're gonna look at a YouTube title and description, and I've picked JLD, Entrepreneurs on Fire.
The famous JLD.
And what I love about this is he keeps it like nice and short and sweet. So if we go down and we have a look at the description, you can kind of see just a little bit about who the person was. I think very unique to him, the top 3 value bombs. So that's what I really like about this is you're not going to find that every single person. This is very much a
very unique
JLD thing.
Yep.
And then he just puts obviously a little bit around connecting to the person, the guest, and then I think the standard sponsors. So really wanted to see, can we bring those value bombs to life for a future episode? So this was obviously like with most things, you want to put a few kind of episodes through, train it and mark it as complete with your style. So I did that with a few of JLD's episodes, and then we're going to put another one through, I think it was Justin Brock. So the Justin Brock episode for JLD's Entrepreneurs on Fire.
Awesome. Okay, so we put it through Capsho. So we trained it on a few different episodes, like you said.
And as you see with this one, like super consistent. Like every one of JLD's descriptions follows this format.
It's very, very
no deviation.
Yeah. So kind of a bit of an opening line, 3 value bombs, maybe a link to the person's social media and sponsors.
Yeah, but because the sponsors are in there and they change, I've not included that
because
makes sense. You're just dropping them into your YouTube as you would normally.
Okay, great. So should we take a look at what Capsho created? All right, so this is the Capsho created YouTube title and description for the Justin Brock episode. So what do we have here? Got title, which is important.
Always. You're always going to have a title.
Actually, that'd be interesting to see. I mean, he's got a pretty long title. So anyway, we'll keep going.
It'd be interesting to see like how that would compare. Didn't train it on the titles, just focused in on the description part here.
Got you, yep. Okay, well, there's your top 3 value bombs. I love that. So it's kind of really brought that in pretty much precisely like how JLD does it, because his value bombs are also quite short and to the point.
Yeah, that's it. There's not a lot of kind of like, I guess, verbosity or waffle there. He's just going to go bang. This is what you need to know, and then kind of moving on. So pretty happy that it's found that, and it's taken JLD's style and put it down on this YouTube description. Yeah,
what I do like is that Capsho, I guess, has also added, because I mean, JLD obviously has a very succinct style, which I think his audience does like, but it's just given it a little bit, even with that opening line, it's kind of brought in some, obviously a bit of context to the guest, but also some hooks. And I'm also actually liking that it, kind of beyond just the, kind of like connect with the guest, which is there, it's kind of led in with a, kind of like a warmer call to action as to like why someone should listen. And I think this has also given some place for keywords to come up as well, because remember, your YouTube title description is other than the title, the description itself also is a searchable thing, so it actually helps you rank for keywords on YouTube. And one thing I did think that JLD's team could really benefit from was like the chapters on YouTube, especially because he doesn't have a video. I think his episodes are, some of them are on the shorter side, but I think chapters, which are so easy to do now, you just literally copy and paste them in. I'm very surprised that the team didn't have them. So I do love that Capsho's created, and Capsho does create chapters as well for your audience to find more like specific parts that they can skip to and listen. That's it. Able to kind of drop those key moments just straight in. Yep. And again, the beautiful part there is just kind of going, I guess Justin at the end probably has put his handles, both site and Instagram. So it's just kind of pulled that from the episode. Nice. It's created those links already for, I guess that's checking, awesome. But not necessarily needing to put that into the editing. So all those kind of small little parts will kind of come through. So yeah, love the fact that really for me, looking for those top 3 value bombs was the key part. That's that real big, distinct structural change. Yes.
nailing that and then still doing what it would normally do to offer a little bit more around the edges to give a bit more impact, which is great.
And in comparison, we had a quick look at what.
So this was the episode.
What JLD and the team did put together for this episode with Justin Brock. So people want to work, not just not for you. That's an interesting title. So that's fun. But yeah, him and the team have gotten stuck very true to, I guess, their formula here. But like I said, I think comparatively, Capsho's done a really good job. I'm pleased with this one.
Pretty good. Okay, so we've looked at the YouTube description. Now let's break down a title and description within Capsho. I guess more commonly known to people as show notes.
Yes.
So we picked Amy Porterfield's podcast because when we have a look at her style, again, looking for, I guess, real distinct markers. So obviously this is trained it on a number of episodes. So one of them was this episode 711. Do you reckon that season, she done 700 episodes, or would this must be 711 episodes?
I think so. Oh, are you thinking it's
season 7, episode 11? But not many people.
She's been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, she's an OG. So
wow, that's a lot of episodes.
Episode 711.
Congratulations, Amy.
Crushing it.
Yeah.
But really distinct style. So you can kind of see that she has a title, but then she kind of leads in with what we would normally consider as another title in that heading formatting.
Yes.
So some little kind of trickiness there. Breaks the mold, not what you'd expect. Has a link to her course.
It's like a CTA straight up.
And then goes into what you would normally expect, just some information and description about the episode, but with a lot of formatting. As you can see, there are a lot of bold. And
with no real, I'm not really understanding the strategy behind the bolding, but I mean, I can see the bolding, which is nice, but it's almost a 50-50 bold and unbold situation.
It is. It's almost literally as much bold text as there is unbold text. So that's really distinct with Amy. And then you kind of go in, she's putting in more around what you're going to find, but she kind of does it as almost like a bit of a chapter summary is what we would normally think of with the timestamps.
Yep.
And then gets into more of a consistent block where she's asking to go, look, listen in, a CTA to listen to the podcast, a shout out to review her on Apple Podcasts with almost an example. And then again, getting some followers and then links mention the episode. So really distinct style. And then obviously a lot kind of changes in terms of some of her CTAs and the links mentioned in this episode, but the format and the structure is consistent.
Right. So this part of her show notes are a little bit more formulaic by way of there's always going to be the rate, review, and follow part. Yes. And then the links mentioned.
But the links are going to change because they very much, it seems like she's bringing in some past episodes, which she might mention on the app. But then there is links to, I guess, in this one, I think it was Canva and Zoom. So it's really just a free-for-all of everything that was in the app.
Yep.
And linking off. So really kind of fascinating, very distinct structure. I've not seen many like this. So this is why we decided, hey, let's give Amy Porterfield a crack and see how Capsho does when we train up the title and description with a number of her episodes. So we then put through episode 713 to see how it would go.
I'm immediately noticing the bolding.
Definitely there's some bold, but there is not an excess. And I think on the whole, I mean, I personally am not surprised there because, as we mentioned, it's difficult for it to know what to bold. Like there is no real rhyme and reason. So even when you're training it up, there's a lot of bold text. It would have to just go like, I just want bold over where to put the bold text.
Yes. I was going to say, other than the sheer quantum of bolding, like I said, I was very quickly, because I think the great thing about, for those of you who do bold, that's the whole guiding the reader's eye into the places of emphasis. And it's a really, a useful way to do that. I was kind of unable to find what her strategy was. Whereas I guess the things that Capsho has decided to bold makes sense for me because it's obviously her CTA itself, which is the Course Confident Bootcamp. It's bringing in this like main point that she's making, which is about about quality, not quantity. So that makes sense to me. So to that point, AI is going to struggle a little bit if you're throwing random things at it that you can't really explain even to another human.
100%. Yeah. It's not just going to go out there and almost make like a haphazard, it feels like, decision just to throw every second word or every second sentence in bold, because I guess that's the part. It's like maybe over time with even like you just see so much kind of volume and training. But for now, as you said, there's going to throw in knowing that you want some text bold, and that's what we're seeing here. Really, the beauty there is editing. It's like, okay, go ahead and just bold up the other parts that you want. So it started the process. I think really the upfront, even though I threw in the CTAs in the training, because they did vary, it didn't have a consistent thing. So if you have a consistent CTA, that might come through. But because it was just the concept of a CTA, but wasn't always the same. It's left that out because it's not, I think, wanting to put in, and it's not a clear call out in the episode. It's something added post show.
And that may be just part of, then it's going to be, when Amy's team starts using Capsho, that would just be part of their workflow where, just get confirmation as to what the CTA would be for this episode.
Yes.
And put it in after the fact. Awesome. It's obviously also pulled in kind of her curiosity hooks that she likes to write around what you'll get from the episode.
Yes. And I think obviously she's pulling those timestamps. We, within obviously the title and description, you can load up chapter summaries with those timestamps. That's, I guess, out of the point, what it's looking from or writing from doesn't have that kind of context. So it hasn't tried to at least make up, even though, again, I trained it verbatim on what Amy did.
Yes.
It's not going to go out there and just make up time codes because it doesn't have access to that because we do it elsewhere. So really, it's given some good points. And then probably what I would do is jump in, load the chapter summaries up and pull those in to map some of the time codes that she had.
Which you can very easily do by just clicking on this plus button for those of you who haven't used it. And you've got chapter summaries as well as key moments. Okay, that's awesome. And one thing I did notice about Amy's style is she does have these, but she also, sort of in a more written form, does talk about, in this paragraph form, I should say, sorry, this is all written form, some of the things that you're going to get. So Capsho has followed that through as well.
It's kind of done that, but it's kind of almost given it's improved the readability as such. I was going to
say, because I almost missed that amongst all the bolding and the paragraphs, but I did like that, it's kind of got that, it helps guide you towards when you're deciding if you want to listen to this episode, what you're going to get out of it. So it's optimized, I think, from my perspective, the structure, but it is following her I guess, preference to have almost two places in the show notes that talks about what you're going to learn from this episode.
Helping that kind of, I guess, listener make it a decision as to, is this the episode that I have to listen to right now?
Yes, exactly. But like we talked about earlier, given almost the second half or the bottom third of her show notes being a little bit more consistent, it's kind of pretty much replicated it exactly, which is great. So it's got the CTA, which is quite enthusiastic in kind of Amy's tone, the link to listen, and then obviously the call to action to rate and review and follow the podcast, which is awesome.
Which, again, going into that, where those CTAs at the bottom of every episode were consistent. So everything I used in the training, it looked exactly like that. So it felt, I guess, confident that this is how I want to write. This is how this part of the show notes, the title and description should be. So it's pulled that in for this episode. And then it's, again, I just didn't even bother with. So if you're putting in there and you do like the links mentioned or something that's quite variable, I didn't even add that in because that is too random. And
very specific to the episode.
You would be doing that and needing your team or yourself to kind of put that level of manual edit in anyway. So it I think it really hit on the right points. Did a great job. And let's have a look at, I think Amy, true to form, did what she does. This is almost the published version of episode 713. She is very true to form. You're right. She's got the 4 paragraphs with all the bolding, what you'll learn, and then, of course, the CTA block at the bottom. And so I guess the interesting part here is that if you've been a content creator, like someone like Amy, who, as we said, like 700 episodes, like has been doing it for so many years.
Crazy.
Obviously, it's not a daily podcast because I'm like, has this been 2 years and she's just smashing it out? Or like even 711 episodes over a weekly show. I don't know. If she's been hitting that consistency, what's that, like 15 years worth of content?
No way.
You know what I mean? Like 50 episodes a year, 15 years. Yeah, it's 14 years. So if Amy's been doing it for 14 years, just like kudos, right? Like, but
that's amazing.
So the great thing is like, if you've got content to anchor in, like she would if she was using Capsho in this instance, you can kind of load it in. I think the beauty, hopefully, what a lot of people will get out of it is going, as you mentioned there, whether it be with Entrepreneurs on Fire with JLD, it adds a little bit more, or it's optimizing the structure. So it's still taking and giving back what she's doing. This is still very unique compared to what it would look like in the first instance.
And out of the box,
But it's allowing, hopefully, the end user to go, okay, that's interesting. Maybe I'll try it like this, because it's still giving me what I was after. As you said, she's putting it in far more paragraph form. I'm just going to keep it very simple there. Still put my bold in because that's the style. I probably wouldn't change that. I like that because that's unique to her. But it's giving her something to kind of think about, but still in her style.
I was going to say exactly because she usually does open with a question, which is what we're doing here as well. I mean, I'd be interested to see, because I think by the time you're reading the third paragraph, you've kind of maybe lost it a little bit unless you're just like a super fan, which at this point you're probably not really reading this then if you're already an Amy super fan. So this is really for audiences who may not be as familiar with you and they're trying to decide whether they want to give you any mind share. And that's kind of who we're aiming for. So absolutely right, especially if you've been doing this for a long time, maybe not 14 years, but you're in your rhythm and things like that. I think using tools like Capsho is a really great way, like you were saying, to take some of the cognitive load off of the basic stuff so that you can make better decisions around readability and discoverability and things like that. So
100%.
Awesome.
Okay, so we've looked at the YouTube description. We've looked at now the show notes and the title and description.
Yep.
So we thought we'd go a little bit more longer form content. So I was like, okay, let's see how it goes with a blog post. Thought of Alex Sanfilippo, kind of immediately. I was like, okay, let me go over to PodMatch.
Yes, one of the most consistent, I guess, like podcasters, but also bloggers.
Yeah, and friend of the show. So shout out to Alex. I know he'll be watching this.
Show?
Friend of the show, of course. Yeah.
Hey, Alex and team.
And so I was like, okay, let's have a look. Now, he has a section on the site for blog, which is here. But interestingly enough, like the actual episodes that he puts for the podcast link to this. So even as I was reading it, I was like, okay, this is not what I guess I traditionally think of as a blog. Because again, even like what you do, the link from your podcast episode, traditionally what everyone thinks of as show notes.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, let's still take this, do what we've done for everything else, and we will train up the blog post within Capsho. So as you can see, say from this episode that Alex did without a guest, was just him, puts in, again, title, great, kind of a bit more of an intro paragraph, then puts some, I guess, the players in, a bit more information, and then really then starts the formula and puts in 3 key takeaways. This was consistent. Now, I just want to highlight this because I found this and I made sure to do it true to Alex form. And I don't know if he does this. I really almost want to ask him, and it has to be because he's put bold on the number 1, italicized the start, and only to the first,
the first few words.
And then he's put underline. Now, this is not consistent with every episode. So this like bold, italicized, underline.
Only some episodes?
Only some episodes. What I found, the underline was probably the outlier. Always seemed to bold the first one and italicize the second one.
I love how deep you went into this with the detail. I love it.
But I'm hoping that that's what he's doing because I noticed as I'm scrolling all of these, I'm like, well, hold on. Is this a choice? Because I don't think that you can automate that. No platforms, you drop it in and it just goes, you know what, we're going to handle this for you because this is best practice.
One decision Alex is making with every episode is to underline or not underline.
Yeah. For 4.3.
Definitely to bold, definitely to italicize, but to underline
Underline is a special play. So puts the key takeaways and then breaks down, I guess, the episode into those kind of 4 key points around what's the education. Or actually, so in this one, 6. So I think that's it. It varies around how many kind of I guess, areas that he's focusing on. I guess in this one, obviously, it makes sense because he was talking about 6 steps. And then finishes off with a kind of clear conclusion, final thoughts. So that's standard across everyone. So I was like, okay, this is great because you can see that it's a very distinct structure that he's putting in. It's not random every episode. And I think you were highlighting up there before, I should call out, likes to throw in a quote somewhere. So again, varies where he places it, but there's always a key quote from the guest, or in this case, because it's a solo episode, he's put himself in. So yes, I was like, okay, really interesting. Let's see how this goes as a blog post. Because as well, if you look at it, it's probably not as lengthy. Even if you look at some of those points.
Definitely not.
You are our resident blogger in the team. When you're expanding on, I guess a section, I think you'd elaborate a little bit more.
Totally, yeah. And this is
for readability, but.
Yeah, and this is an important distinction. I mean, Alex did actually, I think he does have a history of actually doing blogs. So I would say he would agree with us that this is actually more of a show notes, even though it's technically on the blog. This is more of a show notes because it is very succinct and it's everything. Basically, it's punctuated with lots of calls to action to actually go back and listen to or watch the episode. So it's very much show notes style in that. Whereas the reason blogs are longer isn't just for it to be longer. It's actually because you're going for an audience that prefer to read, and they may end up also listening to the podcast or watching it on YouTube, but you're going for a reading audience, and the format and the content is actually going to be very different compared to summarizing the key points of a video or audio content that you want to entice people to listen to it. So that's a distinction. But we went ahead and said, let's still train.
So we're going to train up as a
blog post and see what we found.
Okay, so this episode with guest Jen Rogers. You can see talking about being a podcast guest. Now, the first thing that I noticed was that it didn't have those key takeaways. So it breaks it down into those kind of key areas, did a really great job of, expanding on and giving great value. There's the quote from Jen. It gets into the meta description and infographic at the bottom. It's got the image suggestions like we do. That's part of obviously how we like to present the blog post to our users, but not exactly how Alex would be writing this blog post for the Jen Rogers episode.
Yeah, and based on what you were saying earlier, obviously the more repeatable and structured and kind of formulaic some of your structures are, the easier it is for Capsho to learn. And in this case, you would almost expect, well, Alex is quite, other than the underlining, he's quite structured in how he does it.
Yes.
But it's not really, the blog post isn't really taking those things.
No. So because I think it's looking to go, well, I'm going to still find what you kind of do here, but again, like we've seen with some of the other assets, help expand on it, because that's what it's again, it's almost, we're trying to be helping people bring to light some of these things that might have been a challenge in the past. So I can see with this, it's kind of got the base level structure in terms of how he breaks it down, but it's not perfect for how he's doing it, because I guess straight away I can tell it's just longer.
Yes.
It's just got a lot more content, and it's taken that from, again, though, the episode that he did with Jen.
Yeah. And it's really, and I can't emphasize this enough, is because this is a blog post. This is you saying, I want to create a written piece of content that someone's going to get value out of, even if they don't listen to this episode with Jen.
Yes.
That might be something that they still end up doing, but they are looking for written content. They're Googling it somewhere. You want to be coming up for, written pieces of content where people can read this and say, okay, wow, I understand this framework. Now I want to learn more about PodMatch, or learn more about Jen, in this case, Jen Rogers. And it's a standalone piece of content. So Capsho is going to learn, but it's always also going to stay true to the platform that you've asked it to create the asset for. Yeah,
because even with this, the interesting thing would be well, what if we then trained it up to, what if I deleted everything and just wrote an awareness post under the blog and trained it? If I did that enough, or if I just jumped in and tried to prank you, essentially, then you go to
so much time to do that,
deliver it. It's actually not going to, or it doesn't seem like it's going to actually change that into something now where your blog post is ruined for you.
Yes, exactly.
In essence, because there's almost then, learning is great, but is there a detriment to learning where you could actually go too off schedule, want to come back and you can't because we've
now
actually...
you're right, two sentence blog posts.
So then I was like, okay, let's try again. Let's put another episode through. So had a look at Junaid's episode to see, are we seeing consistency in this, or was maybe Jen's an outlier? So you can see here with Junaid's episode, very similar. So again, it's broken down what they spoke about. Great video and audio quality studio. There's Junaid's quote. Putting it all together, tries to sum it up, not exactly how Alex talks and writes, but you can see there it's understanding his setup, but doing it in, I guess, more of a typical blog format.
Exactly. So it's not kind of doing his final thoughts, but it's still got a conclusion, as all blog posts do. It's not doing the key takeaways, but it's got the key items that they talk about, and it really has got all the detail in there. Again, written very much for someone who wants to learn about setting up your studio at home, and wants all of the content as part of the blog post, as opposed to needing to also watch a video or listen.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, that's absolutely fascinating, because we started with something that maybe our hypothesis was like, this doesn't ring true to, what we would expect for a blog post.
Yeah.
That's the beauty. Like, can Capsho capture this? And in essence, it didn't. It kind of struggled. It wasn't able to just turn something that I guess is not a true to form blog post. It understood some of the structure there, still returned some really great content and output. So I think in my mind, I was like, okay, well, actually, if this is more what show notes are, it's a little bit shorter. Let's test it in the title and description fold. So this is really great content. It's given more kind of like depth and kind of width to the content of the episode with both Jen and Junaid. But if we trained up then the title and description the way we just did the blog, would we see the same results, or are we going to see more of like Alex's style come through? So let's have a look with Jen's title and description here. Immediately,
look at those key takeaways, and look at that formatting.
The formatting was the part that actually blew me away. It's just like the bold, the italics, and the underline. Like just 3 from 3. Wow. Alex,
10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
It's like he was inside Capsho writing it.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Get out of there, Alex.
So it's got the key takeaways that are appropriately formatted, and then it's also got his more succinct summary of the key, I guess, items that they do talk about, without getting into as much detail as the blog post.
Yeah.
And the final thoughts.
And it hits the final thoughts. So,
and of course the quote.
And it's got the quote in there, and like to your point, it's like it's pulled out 3 parts there with Jen's and then got onto the final thoughts. It hasn't just continued to expand out
given all
that
the information.
Whole set framework. Seems like it's quite detailed, and it did that in the blog.
Yes.
Kept it to a far more, this is what you're going to get. but moving it on.
Yes. And I will say that, it's also kind of pulled in, because I guess this part is easy to skip over on Alex's blog, but it does also have that introductory paragraph that, I guess builds the relatability or the relevance for the audience. So it's done a good job of that as well, I think, in a similar Alex style before getting to the key takeaways. So
So looking at this, because I guess Alex has such a formulaic kind of approach and actually does really like formulaic show notes. Like again, as you said, like probably he would agree they're more show notes. It's weird because show notes are really just the blog of a podcast in essence, right?
Yes.
Like, so that's what he's doing. He's like, I don't want a blog actually, but I want that maybe from an SEO point of view. I want that on my site.
Yeah.
So then we're like, okay, Jen's looking good. Let's have a look at Junaid's.
Okay. Let's take a look at his title and description.
And what we're seeing again, true to Alex form, got the lead in, got the couple paragraphs, it's got the takeaways, it's then gone one bold, one italics, no underline, just to Alex's thing. I mean, I don't know whether Junaid did that. Again, far more succinct around the points to get that audio video right, and then hits the final thought. So really interesting to see. Again, the beauty here is don't get too caught up sometimes in like if I was Alex and going, well, I write it as a blog, I want the blog post to be this, but then you're not actually doing show notes, but actually you are doing show notes.
Yep.
Sometimes using or thinking a little bit more outside the box of like, what is the asset that you are creating? Even if you title the blog, that's cool. You can use the title and description show notes.
Yes.
And then just publish it and getting
exactly
the output, the outcome, and that kind of formatting that you're after.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm going to say what Capsho has created is going to be pretty similar to what I guess, maybe better, to what I guess Alex ended up publishing, because it's got the title, it's got the lead in, actually a bit of a bio almost of Junaid. So we have that. It goes key takeaways. I think, he's got 4 and 4 key items, the quote and the final thoughts. It's so very close.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So that's the thing. I was looking at this going, after the blog post was, again, didn't hit a ton of the structural kind of changes that I would have hoped.
Yep.
But probably really gave a great, as I said, expansion on this episode. Switching over title and description. Now all of a sudden you've got the asset that he's needing to publish here perfectly.
Yep.
With that training. Now again, not what Capsho looks like out of the box.
Yes.
Very different.
Yes.
But now it is trained in his distinct style.
Yeah.
He's going to get every episode like that. And then he still then has the blog, which even if you're training it to this is just then a beautiful expansion of your show notes.
Yes, exactly.
Which is brilliant. If he wanted to, he could kick over and actually set up a blog.
Exactly. So if anything, you would say, you would publish both.
Yeah. Well, you've got the ability to, and they're distinctly different.
Yeah. I will say, looking at Jen's example, I do like that. And, obviously Team PodMatch, if you want to bring these into how you're doing your show notes, that's great. But for an episode like Jen's, where she's got a framework that she talks about, I do like that Capsho's gone the little extra mile to kind of call those out in these separate what do you call these, bullet points.
Yes.
Again, like making it really easy, I think, for people to go, oh, that sounds really interesting. Let me hit play. So again, just let AI do this work for you. Take it or leave it. Take the parts that you like. But I think it's, again, kind of keeping open-minded, even if you do have a formula of how you like to do things, to see just little ways you can level up every episode you're working on.
I think the great thing is this really kind of shows that, like, self-learning. Now, probably sometimes this is the key part. Self-learning might be this idea of like, I want it to be exactly how I do it.
Yeah.
And, why can't AI talk like me
Yes.
or write like me? And really what we're finding here is the beauty is give it what you have done in the past. That's going to obviously be such a great starting point. But something like this can kind of do it in like almost 80% there.
Yeah.
But then gives you a lot more to think about. And it's not about going, well, this is not exactly how I wanted it.
Yeah.
It's potentially going, well, this is great. I hadn't thought about this, or it's that little bit harder to do it in this format. And now this allows me to, again, optimize what I'm doing and change it up. And we've seen that across now all the assets. So something like this, title and description, show notes, blog post, the Entrepreneurs on Fire YouTube description, they all have those elements where it's taken all of that understanding. So Capsho's been able to take what the person's already been doing historically, but then give them that, plus hopefully enhance and give them something to think about on top to ultimately, make it better. And that's awesome. I'm just absolutely loved what we've seen from this.
Yeah, it's very, very exciting. All right. Well, that was very eye-opening. Even rewatching that, even though we did record that, I feel just really...
I was excited all over again.
Okay.
Have you heard the excitement
Especially
in my
with
voice?
I was going to say, especially with the formatting. When I did get excited again when I was like, oh, look at that, the underlining. The real ones who are watching along with detail know. But no, truly, I think looking at it at that granular level with each of these different content creators, and really, I think driving home the point that when it comes to self-learning, AI, like any good employee, is really going to be able to detect patterns. It's going to look to kind of replicate things that it can point to tangibly and say, you know, okay, this is the hallmarks of how someone likes to write, their style. And it's really about structure. It's really about things like formatting that you can tangibly point to and say, this is what I like and how it looks on a page.
Yes.
And that's really, I think, you know, what we were talking about was to say, okay, there's a part about AI sounding like you and kind of getting hopefully the tonality of how you like to communicate. But now this is more about how it takes that and also reflects back how you like things to look visually for people to consume.
Yeah. Now, I think that you hit the nail on the head there where when we started, it was that point. And people still kind of come up or they talk about wanting it to sound like you. Very few people have ever said, I want it to look like and feel like me, essentially. I mean, it's a weird thing to say maybe or to think about with writing. Because as I say it, I'm like, so, exactly.
Yeah.
I can't feel like me. But that was, I guess, the starting point that I guess everyone immediately goes to and was working on themselves within ChatGPT. So obviously that was our starting point. But the exciting part again, which is probably why it gets us excited seeing it, even though we recorded it and we did that in real time, is to really see that next level and layer above to kind of go, that's it. It can do a lot more, and to be able to help people get to that look and feel of their content because that sound and the tonality is already done. Like once you kind of have that locked in, there's going to be some incremental changes, but that's it. They're going to be incremental. You're not going to see these wild swings because you don't actually want to see that, even the way we write. Like that's
unless you're really very much changing all the time, radically.
And if you are, then you don't really have a tone of voice.
Exactly. You're just a chameleon that just sounds really random week on week.
A person's not going to be able to replicate that, let alone AI. And again, that's an unreasonable request then, or hoping that AI can do the impossible. Like that's where we get into that realm.
And ultimately, like, how is that serving anybody if it was able to replicate that? Yeah.
It definitely wouldn't be. So so to be able to take it and then kind of start to bring together some of that formatting. Again, there'll be some language in certain parts, but almost like language that fits into structure.
Yeah.
And the beauty is that that's it. Like people were asking for the sound, not so much the structure, and to be able to kind of get Capsho to a point where it is actually learning with every piece of content, like you can see with 3 different use cases that your Capsho will be different to my Capsho.
Yes.
And that's such a cool thing that Alex now, who has a very unique style, has something that looks like his and looks so different to what we do. And that's the same asset within Capsho trained in that way.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I think it's a really important point as well around the incremental benefits that you see, because it's almost like if you were to map out the emotional journey with an AI tool, and one that actually does learn your tone of voice and does self-learn, is that you get that immediate hit, especially, you know, when you first, maybe your expectations are really low or you've worked with very generic AI tools that just kind of does the very AI thing and you're like, it's a good summarizer, but now I've got to do all this work to make it sound like me. And you get that initial hit with Capsho where it's like, oh my gosh, this like, whoa, did I write this? And then, so that's definitely part of the journey for sure. But this self-learning is just more about, well, that's the new baseline now.
Yes.
And it's a baseline that you can expect, which is great, but you're not going to constantly get those highs. You're just going to get these incremental benefits as you kind of really systemize how you write. It's going to learn that over time and really kind of save you time from that perspective. But I think it's really important to have very clear expectations about how you use AI.
Clear expectations and just kind of changing what you find enjoyment and savor. Like again, probably using weird words for, you know, talking about an AI tool or even software tools.
Yeah.
Because even as you said that reminds me so clearly, like one just example always comes to mind. Probably, as maybe some people know, we had chocolate dessert bars back in Australia before we ever started this Capsho journey. That's where Deirdre and I started our entrepreneurship. And I just vividly remember this one lady who just would come in after work, would get a dark hot chocolate And it was obviously to her, it was the best hot chocolate she'd had.
But
and
it was very good.
I'm not gonna
for the
pat
dark
myself on the
chocolate
back.
lovers. I mean, I know hot chocolate feels very like, a milk chocolate thing, but dark chocolate, hot chocolate is where it's at.
Yeah. And so
Personally.
the first time you're going to have it, and we've all had that where you taste something for the first time and the
So
high
good.
is so high because it is
like a literal
the
high.
best thing that you've had.
Yeah.
Either for something you have a baseline to or something that you don't. And it's just the best flavor.
Yes.
And every time you take that or eat it again, and this lady came in every single day. So she lived above us. She would walk past the store every day. And so she would come in. So for about 2 weeks, I saw her every afternoon, Monday to Friday.
14
and
straight
then once
days.
on a weekend because thankfully she had 1 day off. And you kind of going, I feel bad because this is a responsible service of hot chocolate. I don't think you should be drinking 6 hot chocolates a week.
RSH.
But then she started to ease back because I imagine
Because she
for
became a
her,
diabetic. Yep.
let's hope not. I was going to say, I can't even remember her name. It's really unfortunate. But I imagine for her, and we've all had that too, is that same high that you had or that you were looking for is definitely not going to come.
Yep.
But then readjusting your expectations to still know that this is still a wonderful hot beverage, whatever,
Exactly.
a great little treat in the afternoon, and enjoying it for what it is there and still knowing that it is providing that. So I think that's where I just look even with
being very aware when you're having a mediocre hot chocolate.
And then being able to go and
I'm
just
not wasting my money on this shiz.
I'm in a different suburb. I still need the hit because that's what I've trained my body to want. But it's just not, it's not about that compared to that choc pot.
Exactly.
But, I find it myself because that's it. We use all these tools. We're so then inclined to just go, well, this is my expectation. And as soon as something then doesn't work for us, ready to fly off the chain to go, but that's the thing. It's because
love that expression. Yeah.
It's the expectation then has shifted because you're expecting the new little thing to give you that high.
Yes.
Versus like, no, this is still making my life really easy.
Yep.
I've just got to figure something out here. Or I can't expect to still see those like wowing moments.
Yes.
Because I've actually set this up in that way. And it's really great that I have been able to set it up, that I was so wowed that I could then bring it a lot of the times to you guys to say, hey, I think we should use this.
Yes.
Or how about doing something like this?
Yeah. I will say though, sometimes what I've found is once you've established that new baseline and level, and then you kind of know what to expect, sometimes if I'm feeling a little meh about the output, I interrogate myself a little further to say, well, I think the content that I created or we created or, Deidre created, whoever it was, it just wasn't inspired enough. And that is showing in the AI generated, drafts.
Yep.
So definitely let yourself feel those things, but this is how you can start to use the AI, to your advantage, to be a reflection tool, to be all of these things, because that is actually really helpful too, because it might be something else that's causing that.
Yep.
And then they'll just put you, you course correct for the next recording session. And that's always a great thing.
Yeah. And I think then actually that one key part, which then really drives the self-learning for people, is then just that consistency. So then kind of sometimes where we get into the habit with that kind of feeling of like, is this enough?
Yeah.
I want to see those big gains. You then start to take big swings and you just do stuff for the sake of doing it,
it doesn't
in
make
a
any
different
sense.
way.
Yeah.
Versus going, actually, no, this is now locked in. It's dialed in, like your messaging to your audience. You don't have to do anything different.
Yep.
Continue to practice, refine, do the little things, because that's what then will show up in the game. So again, it's like training. So keep editing the assets that same way, keep marking as complete, because then that is going to ensure that Capsho keeps learning. The longer you do that, the more it learns, the better it just becomes. It's that incremental game that is, so exciting ultimately in the long run.
Yeah. This has been great. I'm really excited about, definitely where self-learning is going to be going. And obviously, if you haven't tried Capsho and you want to have a go and see the self-learning for your own content, you can go and start a free 14-day trial at www.capsho.com. And pretty exciting, the next video we've got planned as well for YouTube.
Oh yeah. I mean, Bona just puts me on the spot there going, I'm like, what are we actually doing in 2 weeks? No, I do remember. Actually, the next couple are going to be a lot of fun.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, we don't have to tease it, but you will want to tune in for that one.
No, definitely. Let's forward sell it now that I've remembered what we are
good.
going to be doing.
I was giving you some time. Can you tell this bit is live? We were so close to a flawless live.
This is better that this part is off the rails.
Spontaneity. This is the spontaneity.
Then we go live and our mics are not working. But again, go back and watch that episode.
Yeah, you don't want to miss that one.
But yeah, no. The next, I'd say in a fortnight, and then definitely the one after that. It's going to be a lot of fun where we are going to break down other parts of, I guess, AI, content creation.
Yep.
Or different space of how we think about the content being created by AI and seeing what that looks like.
Very topical, very much in the conversation right now. So we're excited to dive into the detail.
Yeah. See you then. Bye.
Bye.